Okay, so we've got people flooding in. So why don't we get started? And fingers crossed, the technical demons will stay away. So, guys, thank you very much for joining us on this week's local search clinic. A couple of quick things to say. Is this actually the last clinic for a while? We're going to take a bit of a kind of sort of summer break, and we're going to regroup in the kind of early autumn and come back afresh with a whole new set of speakers and topics to discuss. Because actually, we feel that we were providing a lot of value to those people who kind of listen in, and actually, there's quite a lot of kind of recurring issues and topics that kind of come up. So we're going to make sure we address those most kind of prominent and in-demand topics, probably starting off at some point in September. But today we have the one and only Tim Capper from Online Ownership. Delighted we've got another Brit in the house because we often skew very heavily towards Americans and Canadians. It's always nice to show that we've got some good technical knowledge on this side of the Atlantic. Tim, do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself? Who you are, what you work with, your experience.
Yeah. So in a kind of nutshell, I started dabbling in SEO around about 2001 during Foot and Mouth. I had a hotel. I was a hotelier, and I had a separate restaurant in Cumbria, and the entire area shut down, and it was kind of a wow. Okay, how do I get business? The press is saying we shut down. How do we make this work? As a result of that, sort of getting stuck into it, other hoteliers started asking me, "Oh, can you help out, etc. And can you do?" And sort of developed from there. 2005, at that point, I sold the hotel, and then it was a question of, well, let's go all in. I love doing this. I seem pretty good at it, and let's develop. Initially, I was asked to by the full service digital agency to head up their SEO side of things, and that's sort of how my agency sort of got my foot under the with agency experience, and kind of grew from there. But having always worked for myself, you get those kind of things like, yeah, I can just do this better sort of thing. And of course, agencies tend to sort of overpromise, and things never really materialized. And then it was a question of, right, online ownership is going to begin. And that's essentially how it started. I have partnered over the years with other agencies who offer different things, and then it's never kind of worked out, and eventually it was right, no, we'll just do it for ourselves under online ownership.
Okay, and what what range of services do you provide at the moment?
Well, I'm pretty much niche in terms of local SEO, and various things around local SEO. So whether it be anything within the SEO, but more with the local aspect attached to it. I also do a lot of which I don't see, but I do a lot of compliance auditing for large agencies that manage GMB listings. So that's kind of a unique little niche thing that very few people offer, but so many people need now.
And ignoring the kind of current sort of COVID sort of situation, which obviously is a huge fly in the ointment in many respects, how do you see the demand for someone who is a specialist in local SEO being at this point in time versus, let's say, 5 years ago? More in demand, less in demand, about the same?
I would say probably growing, actually, probably growing. COVID has slowed things down, but as people are feeling a little bit more confident in opening up and spending a little bit more money again, that's opening up again. But the demand has grown as people have realized that everything essentially is local now in terms of search. Whether Google's using your IP or whether they're using your geo on your phone, essentially where you want to appear. Obviously, there's differences, large e-com and things like this. But for a local business, it's they're finding it's increasing.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to hear. And I would certainly echo that back in terms of the increase kind of volume of kind of customers and interest that we've got, people entering the market, either SMBs or kind of new agencies. Okay, Tim, so got a couple of big questions to start you off with here. And obviously the topic for today's webinar is really focused around marketing your agency. So it's essentially, how do you kind of grow your agency through attracting and winning kind of new clients, not focusing so much on the sort of sales side, but more on the awareness generation for agencies so that they can create awareness amongst their kind of target audience. It could be local SMBs, it could be brands, it could be certain niche sort of industries. That's really the kind of sort of epicenter for what we're going to kind of talk about today. Question-wise, loads of great questions coming in. Quite a few ones not really on topic about kind of GMB. We're going to answer those. We're just going to do those at the end, if that's all right, so that we can kind of answer the kind of topic related questions first and foremost, and then we can talk about some of the GMB stuff. So hopefully those people who have asked GMB questions are happy to hang on to the end. We get to those. Tim is a bona fide expert and he will bring some fantastic insights and answers to them. I promise we'll get to them. We'll just do them once we've addressed some of the more kind of on topic marketing your agency type questions. So a big question to start you off with, Tim. So you've been sort of, in the, I guess, purely in kind of SEO for around 15 years now. How many years have you had your own agency for?
Well, about 15 years.
About 15.
Yeah.
What do you wish you knew then that you know now about attracting customers?
So I was in kind of a unique sort of, I created kind of a unique niche for myself in the very beginning, which was just a complete accident being with hotels. But I would say the thing that I wish I had known then was sort of SEO is not right for everyone at that time. SEO is a pretty hard sell if somebody doesn't know what SEO is. And okay. I did waste a lot of hours explaining to people what SEO is, and then can I do it for you? If somebody already has the basic understanding and they're looking for that service provider, then you're not going to spend your hours on that hard sell. It's just, the analogy of a sort of a, and in fact, most people in SEO, you'll know, you go to a party and somebody says to you, so what do you do? And you say SEO and their eyes are like, do you know what I mean? It's a pretty hard sell. If you go up to a normal business owner and you're having a chat and then it's like, hey, I can do this, and I can do this. And unless they kind of have an idea, then it's pretty hard sell. So I wish I hadn't have spent those hours all those years ago actually trying to sell SEO.
Do they not look at it as is the problem they've got not one of attracting more customers, which is a fairly universal problem?
Yeah, every business wants to attract customers. But in this day and age now, people have, I would say we're at an age now where most businesses, not all, but most businesses have heard of SEO in some form or another, and they probably get the emails day in and day out, Yeah. So it's kind of, it has attracted a sort of, it probably has a little bit of a reputation issue. But if somebody comes to you and says, look, I'm not entirely sure what I need, but this is my issue, and I think SEO can help me in that direction, that you may not be able to help them, but you're already down that step of not spending 2 hours explaining to them on how you're going to fix it or how it can benefit them.
So do I get now that you tend to try and sidestep those potential clients or conversations where someone is really at ground level? They haven't.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, normally if I've met someone at an event or I've, a meeting or whatever the case may be, and they approach you, you can very quickly pick up, no, I'm going to spend hours trying to explain just, even how the basics of a search engine works. And that's not really worth my time in spending that amount of time now. If you go away and do a bit of research and come to me and go, I think you offer what I need. They're already more receptive to it. They already know they have a need, and it's whether you can then fill that need.
And I guess that actually, it's a lovely position to be in when customers come to you knowing they have a need, and your name is already on their lips as a sort of potential sort of provider. And how do you kind of get to that point then? What's been your sort of journey? Because obviously you started off with no clients, no experience, and you've been running a successful agency for 15 years. What is it that's different? How do you make that leap? How do you kind of go from struggling to get that first client to having lots of clients and having a healthy pipeline?
So as I said, I mean, it was my initial step into the market was sort of unintended consequences. For me personally, with my agency, I would say it's more about personal sort of beliefs and ethics as my marketing initiative. I mean, the two hoteliers which I helped out 20 years ago are still with me today in various forms. So whether they've bought new businesses, whether they've moved into new ventures, they've always then taken me with them. You build that trust, you build that relationship. So, that sort of was an unintended consequence. I tend to also, my main sort of marketing thing, and as marketers, we all do it, we all tell our customers, you need to put your business into the purchasing funnel. So you need to put yourself into, their purchasing and their research. How can you help them? I mean, I've helped a lot of people, just things where a conversation down, over the phone, or whether it be at an event or a meeting, where I've spent an hour just giving them some quick tips, because you sort of make a connection, has ended up being a client that's been with you for 10 years. So if you can class actually a genuine wish to help a business rather than running it as a complete business, as in I need to make profit from, then that's for me, that's worked really well, where I've got a genuine interest in their business and actually make, as best to my ability, helping them to succeed.
So would you classify that as having a purpose bigger than profit then, which drives how you work?
Yeah, we all have to make profit. It's just, it's what you do. But most of my long-term or most of the best clients that I've ever developed or who have stayed with me or have moved on and then come back in another form when they've started something else has always been initially from actually helping them, going sort of above and beyond, whether it be a phone call to me going, I saw you say something about this, and just spending an hour on the phone with them, to a forum question, whether you've spent an inordinate amount of time just trying to get them to understand, no, don't do this, yes, you can do this. So just giving that little bit of extra has probably actually landed me the most long-term and the best productive clients for me.
Okay, interesting. And I get just looking at the kind of chat there, obviously that people are enjoying the kind of frankness of the discussion, and there's more of this should be kind of happening. So maybe that's something that we can sort of facilitate. And Fleming sort of sums it up, saying it's about showing value, isn't it? It's about giving something good value, not asking for anything in return, and trusting that relationship will kind of bloom and grow into something that ultimately results in sort of profit for both agency and the client. Roughly, those kind of conversations you have, some don't go anywhere and some do. Do you get a sense of how many conversations you've got to have like that to land a client?
Yes, I would. It all depends on them really, but it's going to be a minimum of at least 2, with several emails in between. But I think if you are expending a little bit of energy with them, you can always feel where it's going. But if you're spending a little bit of time with them, you're not only providing them or leading them through the thought process, you're also showing them that your commitment to actually, what you feel about their business.
Andy's put a good comment about it. He says you can't do local unless you help local. And Tim, obviously you're you're kind of active on the forum. How have you kind of given to the local community in terms of your sort of public presence, either on sort of forum activity or kind of speaking engagements? How have you gone about establishing yourself as a bit of a name in the industry? What have been the building blocks that have taken you to that position?
I mean, it initially starts out probably, really actually being online physically and helping community was probably with dumb SEO questions. I mean, that's been streamed every Thursday for the last 10 years. And that's, it can range where literally we don't judge. We can answer the most simplest of questions to, sometimes we can't always answer, some really high technical stuff, but, and it started from that. I'm also a GMB Product Expert, and, that you do have to spend I wouldn't say a set amount of time, but you need to kind of prove that you have a bit of expertise, and you do. Your overriding aim of the whole thing is to genuinely want to help businesses troubleshoot GMB, and of course it offshoots where you give them a bit of other advice. That then built into webinars, etc. And if you've got a passion for something, you can easily talk about it. If speaking events, it's probably not my sort of go-to forte sort of thing, but get involved in local communities, and there's tons of them online. Start slowly, see what people are talking about, and then slowly start getting involved, and you'll be surprised how many people want to learn without being lectured to. It's a good start in marketing yourself also, as well as seeing what local businesses actually need or they're really getting stuck with, and then you can actually try and meet that need.
Changing tack slightly, so you obviously started as a kind of hotelier. That was your kind of trade and your craft, and then you saw an opportunity to kind of morph into sort of something different. How many of what percentage of your clients are still in the kind of hotel industry?
Quite a big chunk.
Why do you think that is?
Well, the hotel industry is kind of unique in the sense that they are literally being shafted by Google. Google's got 9 billion reasons not to allow hotels to go it alone in search results. Your OTAs, your OTAs dominate any hotel related searches. GMB, they literally have no editing options in their GMB dashboard. I mean, you can't even write your own hotel's description in a GMB listing. And I'm pretty vocal in some of my posts and rants, especially over COVID. I think so they can see that although in one part of me, I wouldn't say represent GMB in that sense, but one part of me is very passionate about doing things right, and how Google can, you can really work with it. But on the flip side, I think they can see my passion in helping. Plus, I can talk to them about rack rates. I can talk to them about, what kind of profit are we, looking on, what margins are you working on in your restaurant, your spa, and I understand the industry. So it's probably an easier discussion there. But you can take those skills to any kind of business. But you just need to understand what their margins are, how you can help them, where their better sales process are, and guide them through.
So there's a set of common questions to understand how their business kind of works. But obviously, I guess a specialism like you've had gives you a foot up the rung in terms of other agencies that may not be able to kind of use the same language and show the same amount of experience as well as kind of empathy for kind of clients in that area. Do you tend to get a better close rate if you're pitching to a hotel versus another type of business?
Yes, I do. Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you start talking to them about rack rates, and even if you mention them, look, you've spelt your sous vide on your menu incorrectly there, just as a heads up kind of thing. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. They think this guy knows our business better than we know our business. We can trust him. Yeah. To a kind of certain degree. Yeah. It's a kind of logic to that, So another kind of question, actually, you talked about having a couple of customers that you've been with for a long time. What, do you find it's more lucrative to retain a customer than to win a new one? And do you put more effort necessarily around that?
Yeah, 100%. The sort of our client base is, we have a lot of sort of full-time retained clients. We do sort of between 5 and 10 short-term a month, whether they be running a 2 to 6 month sort of fix. Mm-hmm. And then we have on average between 15 and 20 quick fixes. And when I mean a quick fix, it's an hour to a 5 hour job. But and those are continued turning over. But you definitely want to have, or for me, or for us, the long-term retained client, you've already onboarded them. You've built a relationship. They trust you. You already have developed a relationship with the internal teams. You can get things done so much faster because you've built that relationship. You can literally send the developer, for example, the internal or their marketers or their graphic designers. Look, this is what we're putting together, and you've already developed that working relationship that they can turn it around quickly. Onboarding a new client, you need to go through that process. There's typically the hand holding where they're a little bit nervous. You need to build a relationship with the internal teams. And if you were having to do that every month, it takes time, and you're going to be spending a lot more time onboarding, holding hands, than actually getting things done.
So certainly your ability to be really productive and add value comes sort of further down the line. Things are moving smoothly and fluidly.
So I would 100% certainly spend more time retaining a client than looking for wanting to have a turnover of more clients.
Do you have an account management structure? How do you manage existing relationships?
That's basically me.
Okay.
And I haven't refined it. To be honest, for me, it's more of a developed relationship. I should be more professional in the way I manage those things, but that's just the way we've evolved. But I think definitely, as an agency grows, you should certainly put account managers in place. Who then, you still build that relationship and still maintain that relationship, but the account manager should certainly then maintain and build on their relationship with the client, because that is going to be you don't want to be where only when there's a problem. But I haven't gone down that road, but I think it's a very sensible move for larger agencies.
Yeah, I guess you need to find someone who's as passionate as you, and someone
you do
come across with the same amount of passion and care.
Yeah.
Well, you must be very busy, Tim, with all those customer relationships. How important is saying no to the wrong types of clients been for you?
Well, in the beginning, and I think everyone will come across this, you don't want to say no. But as the years go by, you realize the headache that's been caused, the sleepless nights where something's been promised, over-delivered, under-delivered. Yeah, you certainly need to manage those expectations from day one. And if you do need to say no, you need to say no. It's easier said than done as you've developed. And I suspect anyone starting out now or still very early on in the stage, you're not going to say no because you really want to, you really need that and want that business. I can totally understand that. But you will reach a point later on down the road where you'll go, damn, I wish I'd said no. And you will even occasionally, and even now I still occasionally make the mistake and onboard the wrong kind of client for us. Yeah, I've gotten much better at it. I probably make that mistake once or twice a year.
Yeah. Do you have a clear sort of playbook for identifying the right clients, or is it a gut feel for you?
It really is a gut feel. You can tell by the language, or how many times they email you. Right, you can really tell. Yeah, I've made that mistake. You think that's a good client. You think it's a good fit. 2-3 months down the line, there's starting to be little niggly things popping up, and you're spending more time holding their hand and firefighting when you could actually just be getting the job done. So anyone starting out, you'll still make the mistake. I still get it wrong occasionally. I've gotten much better. I probably only cock up maybe once a year now, taking the wrong one on.
How do you extract yourself from a relationship like that, where, and maybe you haven't done it, but maybe you have, but also I guess if you think about your reputation, you don't want that person to go off and going, Tim couldn't do the work. I feel screwed over by Tim. How do you do it in a way that is damage limitation?
I try, for me, although I have no idea about psychology, I try and start pushing them into a direction where they feel they can do it better. Or a lot of the time, a lot of my clients are international also, and a lot of the time I also push it into that. It may actually be, we may have reached a point here where it could be better for a more local company to start looking at this. So I tend to do it that way. I don't really want any sort of negative feelings or hard feelings, but I sort of.
So you should reposition the departure as a fresh start for them, as an opportunity to take it to the next level. So actually, it's not that I don't want to work with you. It's just like, you know what? I think there's a better way for you to be getting more value, and I'm going to help you get to that. Or help you achieve that. Interesting. Yeah, I imagine it's a nice way of getting out of a tough sort of situation.
And of course, you can always use the exchange rate value. You can use, international transfer. You can use a lot of different things, but you could just slowly start pushing it through.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump into the questions, Tim. Thank you very much. I've actually got loads more for you. We might come around to that in a bit as well. So first question comes in from Ross. Ross says, as a new agency, what's the best plan for building a scalable onboarding and management strategy?
So look, the thing is, when you talk about scalable, you are literally going to be working on sort of kind of set sort of packages or things like this, and that is really the only way you're going to go scalable.
By set of packages, you mean in terms of a set of offerings.
You're going to have a
that
set
every
offering,
client gets.
whether it be a basic build to a set amount of work on it, etc., and then moving through. Whereas I tend to focus more straight away on what they perceive the issue to be, because they've obviously feel there's an issue there, and then we try and work it from there. Later on, we can always say, right, we need to do X, Y, and Z. But I think if you're going to scale, and if you want in and fast, you need to have your onboarding process as streamlined as possible. Your account managers you certainly need to be, you need to know the exact one who you're going to be handing over to, and set sort of systems in place is going to be your way to go. The build, the sign off, the going live, to then working on optimizing it, to whether it be citations or content or outreach or whatever. But you really need to have that streamline in place. You don't want to then go, right, we're at the content phase. How do we start working out a content plan? You need to have that. You need to have that in place, so that it's not going to hold you up.
So in your eyes, do you see it kind of clearly being kind of two camps, where you've got the more sort of bespoke type agencies that will do custom analysis, custom audit, custom work, that's more kind of very less high scale, more in depth. And then you've got the route of actually sort of set packages that are fairly generic for each kind of client, and you're just trying to put as many kind of clients through those packages as you can do.
Yeah. I would. Yeah. If the thing is, if you start offering, when you start going down the bespoke sort of, we will help you with that problem, it's not as streamlined to onboard. Sure. Because you need to identify that, you need to work through, you need to cost that individually. Whereas if you've got a set thing, whereas we'll give you a 5-page site, we will blah 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 XYZ, that's scalable, and you can do that.
And I guess as an agency, you need to kind of work out what kind of works for you. And I guess some of that might stem from your passion. What's your reason for doing the work? And you're obviously kind of passionate about helping customers, so you might put yourself more on the bespoke end because you're solving the specific problems. Whereas I guess if someone's approaching this from a point of like, I want to build a scaled business, they haven't got the luxury of doing that kind of bespoke work. So they're going to put in place these kind of clear plans and then kind of market and sell against those, put lots of kind of clients through. Do you get a sense of where you get more churn or potential kind of more or less value per customer in each of those areas?
I suppose the less value, I think the way we have set ourselves, initially we say, where do you perceive the problem to be? And I think because of the way we've done that, and we always say, what do you think the issue is? Not, hey, look, I've just run an audit and there's 672 things that are showing up as a warning and a this. It's understanding what they perceive to be the issue. So I think because the way we've approached that, we don't tend to get much churn on that.
Why do you ask them the issue, given that you're the expert? What's your sort of rationale for?
Because I want to know why they're coming to me. So if somebody phones and goes, I want to rank better, that's not going to help me really understand what they feel the issue is. Ranking better is not sort of an issue. I want to know from a business point of view, because if somebody says, oh, I just want to rank better, that's not telling you what their business is, what the main product they're wanting to push. It's easy to just chuck out some keywords and go, yeah, we'll sort that out for you. But then I'm not really helping the business. I'm not getting to the core crux of what they are perceiving is the real issue. like, tell me what you're typing in. Why, tell me what you want to see happen there. And it's easy to say, oh, I want to rank number one. But it's once you dive down, you actually then start to understand what they are trying to achieve. And then you can help them achieve that. And, it may not be ranking number one for a particular term, because then you've just decided, right, you've just shown them, right, that's actually not really where we want to go. You actually want to achieve this. Ranking for that's not going to help you achieve what you really want to achieve as a business.
So you essentially, you allow them to articulate the problem. You're showing that you're listening to them, and that.
Yeah, definitely. I want to know what they think the problem is, and then when I can understand what they think the problem is, then you can sort of look at the site and work out how are you going to solve what they think the problem is. And of course, they're not always right, and you need to tell clients. Certainly you're not always right, but once you understand what they think the issue is, then you can actually start solving that issue for them.
Yeah, and I imagine that builds a lot of trust, because you are really asking them about the business, like what's going on, and getting them to help you in the kind of sort of diagnosis.
Sure, it's also lost business, because when somebody tells you what you think you are, you can actually look at it and go, well, you really don't have an issue there. We can fix that so what might have turned into a 6-month job actually ended up being a 4-hour job. So it swings around about, but at least you're spending the time and you're not wasting that client's money. I think if you waste a client's money, I mean, we've probably all here at some point heard, oh, I came from another SEO agency and I was paying X amount a month, and they've literally, and you're like, oh my God, So, yeah.
Yeah, okay. We'll come back to that. We'll get some more questions. Let's dive back into the questions. Thank you, Ross, for that great question. This question comes from Andy. Have you got any good local outreach tips? I guess local outreach for, for getting out to kind of local clients.
Yeah. So I think you want to put yourself out into if you say local outreach, you essentially want to be in that area. If we're talking about local businesses, get involved in local events where, they, a lot of especially where I am, you always have these kind of, I wouldn't say charity, but sort of local community funded things for businesses. Get involved in them and spend a little bit of time talking to those businesses. The more time you spend interacting with businesses, trying to understand what they are trying to achieve, the easier you are to step into that role to actually help them. Local is really about talking to people, and especially even with your clients, even if when you land a local client, you want to help build that client, and it's going to involve talking to other local businesses to see how you can actually work together and benefit each other. So in terms, if you want to spend more time in local, actually see how you can get involved more within the community, the business community. Whether there's a local online forum, marketplace, even a magazine, see if you can start contributing.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tim. Have you done many kind of local events or industry events, and how have you found those worked for you?
So I do. I tend to spend quite a bit of time. Initially, I spent a fair bit of time. But remember, don't try and sell SEO. Well, at least it did, for me, it wasn't. And now over the years, I actually get asked, I get the emails, hey, look, are you interested? We're just doing a little local business seminar. The local college, this year's marketing team, can you come and do your usual sort of 2-hour pitch before we send these people out into the world? And you develop those, pitches. And they won't always convert into business, but you are putting yourself in their mind as someone who's taken the time out just to help them out, as you know, with their business or starting out in business, and it does come back to you.
Yeah, so you're giving them kind of some goodwill and some good value, and that may not be a direct consequence of work coming from it, but actually you're putting yourself in the right place so that when someone they know is looking for work, you know, your name is on the tip of their tongue.
Definitely.
Question from Sam: do you have any good kind of like lead generation tactics? He puts down here. It's just jumped. My screen's just jumped. Hang on a second. Sorry, my screen jumped as I was reading it out. I think it was to do with sort of special deals or sort of special offers, or any kind of, you know, initial service offering to get someone on a small piece of work that then expands. Is there anything that you use kind of proactively around that?
So my main lead gen is essentially obviously we specialize in local. So my main lead gen tends to be something within local that's causing an issue, and then it would be either on my own site, or it would be on external sites, you know, where I feel it's, you know, really unique, and this is how I solved it. Case studies also.
Can you give us a specific example, Tim, of what you mean by that? When you say your own site, is it a kind of Google error or a Google issue?
So yeah, so a lot of the time it could be how to, whether it's a workaround, how to. It could be an actual issue going on at the time, and then there's and then there's more unique ones, whether it be about, you know, citations, good or bad. You know, you're actually putting out an issue which you feel or you've seen as a growing problem. That's how you're dealing with it. And, you know, you're either, it's either in a webinar where you do a specific one on it, whether it be you incorporate that into a talk, or you're publishing that either on your site or external larger sites with a larger reach and audience. A lot of people, when they actually outreach, typically tends to be, I read this, can you do that for me? So that tends to be my main, I would say, the largest point of lead gen. Over and above, you know, obviously regular clients, recommendations, word of mouth, etc.
So it's about essentially showing that you've got the ability to solve a problem, and that client has that problem, and then they sort of find you. Yeah. What is your, of all the leads that you get in, you know, can you give us rough percentages on how much is recommendations and how much is, you know, kind of content marketing, bringing clients to you, and then the other channels that you use?
So you know, the recommendations tend to end up being longer term clients. So there isn't really sort of the churn on those. But I would say, if I had to split it, I would say 40 to 50% on is actually from providing a solution and putting it out there. But then again, those are the quicker fixes, the 2 month job, the 6 month fix, or, you know, the 5 hour kind of fix. It varies.
Do you find, and so you say, so you find you get a fewer kind of recommendations, but when you land those, they tend to be longer running clients. Why do you think that is? Is that because they haven't come to you with a specific tactical problem, or they've got a high level of trust?
Mate, yeah, typically. And of course, they're larger things. So a lot of recommendations, you know, of course, a recommendation also means that someone has been chatting to another business owner and in the scenario where they've said, well, how did you get your site? So those don't happen every day where, I mean, how often do you end up talking to, someone else and then, oh, well, how did you manage it? So they don't happen all the time. And it has to come up in the perfect sort of situation that they're sitting for that recommendation to occur. But the recommendations on the shorter jobs, which tend to happen more regularly, is relationships that you built up with other agencies or other service offerings. So I tend to get a lot from developers that either I've provided or I've worked with before in some form of area. And every time they take on a new client and the client goes, well, are we going to rank now? And he goes, yeah, I'm just the developer, but this is the guy that we should be using and integrating it during the build. So it's also those developed relationships, which are still recommendations, which are more regular.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? That ability, I guess, often when I think of the client agency relationship, I think it's a kind of direct one-on-one. But it sounds like you actually have some quite lucrative relationships with other agencies who specialize in other areas that are sort of separate to what you do.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
So how much of your work do you think comes through that channel then, through other agencies?
I'd say a good, probably a 30% on that, really. It's regular. Every time they take on a new project, whether they don't want to bring that skill in-house, whether they, and some of them have tried, have not wanted to carry on with it. SEO is kind of and of course they've potentially onboarded wrong kind of clients. When am I going to rank? When am I going to rank? These kind of things. But I've sort of built up these relationships, and equally it flows the other way. If I've taken on someone where there's something specifically needs doing that I know another developer that I've worked with has solved before, this is the guy that is going to fix that.
Yeah.
And I also move in that direction.
How do you establish those relationships with other agencies? What's the how do you come across each other?
Yeah, those have naturally developed. Those have naturally developed. The other ones, they've also read things online. Those tend to be more GMB related issues, where agencies, but once they've come to you you've provided a good service, no fluff, no messing about. You've done the job, pass it back to them and the client. You're in their mind, and these things happen time and time again, and people get approached with different issues. And of course, sometimes tapping into larger agencies is great because they have sales teams, and if they're overselling things and they can't actually deliver, or let's face it, have cocked up in terms of local, then you're their call.
Interesting. Do you find, and it seems like a great way to turn a tap on as a supply of leads. It makes up 30% of your your kind of your lead base, your customer base. Do you find that when you work with clients through another agency, I guess one, is it a harder relationship to understand what the client really needs, and two, do you get less money from that or a lower margin because you're having to as a middleman essentially?
Yeah, no. So I don't white label for them. That's like a thing that we've built up. We went down that road before. It always ends in, not always, but it ends in tears quite a few times. The relationship that I've built up with my regular referrals is that we don't. They come to me direct. I will quote bill direct, and if I send them direct, they to whoever I'm sending to, they will quote and bill direct. We don't do any I'm just not comfortable with the whole percentages in between, things like this. I don't like going down that road. been burnt a few times in the early days with that, and it's just, yeah. So that's typically the way I work. And if an agency thinks that's going to fly with me, I'm not like, no, that's not really going to happen. If you want me to work on that, introduce me to the client, we'll do that. I'm not going to poach them from you, but we'll fix that up and send them back.
Okay, interesting. Great, Tim. Thanks. That's very clear. Right. Next question. Just looking down here. If you'd ask that one there. Industry talks. Have you done many talks at kind of hotel type events? And is that something, even if you haven't done it, you think actually is a good way for businesses to establish an expertise in a certain area?
Definitely. If you can put yourself into the industry and allow the industry or the industry body, because obviously there's, sometimes there's quite a few. And if you can get that industry body to host an event that you're invited to give a chat to, that can, I was going to say, set you up for life. Not really, but it is brilliant if you can work your way into a part or portion of an industry where you can actually attend or regular speak at events, things like that, then you've done very well for yourself.
Yeah, I imagine so. I've heard lots of things, particularly from the guys the kind of automotive space. They I guess once you kind of get in there with the kind of bodies and you become an established figure, you can really kind of just expand that. It gets much more easier to get involved in more events, be invited back. You're a notable speaker, you're a notable name. It creates a bit of a sort of flywheel of activity for you. Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to jot down some other questions. We've got a few other GMB type questions creeping in here. You know what? Rather than me trying to sift through this, we've just got to go straight down the list. This comes from George Murphy. Are there any other sites similar to Upwork that you recommend you bid on for SEO projects? Is that something you ever do? And what's your kind of attitude to those types of sites? And are there any other good ones out there? I guess if you're a fledgling business who's to get going, is this a good place to get leads from?
Yeah, I think I did. I think I have bid on a couple in the early days, but it wasn't Upwork. I'm just trying to think which one I used. Well, it wasn't very successful, put it that way. If you're putting yourself, look, if you need some cash coming in, I'm not going to say no. Go for it. But if you sit in that area, you're always going to be chasing. You're always going to be chasing that next invoice rather than that invoice coming to you. So, if you need to pay some bills, get going, crack on. You just do what you got to do. But I wouldn't set myself as that's the way I'm going to do it always. I would start trying to build yourself and your brand at the same time, because you don't want to chase the invoice. You want the invoice to come to you, really.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's fair enough. I think I guess also you're pretty always competing against a very large pool of other providers in that space. It's pretty often very much price driven. I imagine pretty hard to also get across the quality and the individual expertise that you've got. But you're absolutely right. Definitely. Sometimes need must, and you got to kind of compete. I mean,
definitely.
I think there are other ones out there. I'm sure a fairly quick kind of Google search will identify the opportunities. But I think it's probably not a long-term sort of enrichment plan that you base your kind of acquisition strategy going through Upwork. You probably don't get that many kind of long-term clients. I know that when we've used Upwork, it tends to be for kind of short-term projects, get something done quickly. If we're truly going to invest in something for the long term, we'd much rather find a more trusted provider to build a relationship with longer term than go down go down the kind of upwork route. It tends to be much more kind of tactical activity that we might use a platform like that for. This one is from Jacqueline. Tim, what are your top go-to local SEO tactics right now? Maybe for example, what are the top 3 things that you think move the needle when you want to improve someone's local ranking? Let's say local pat rather than local organic.
My top 3 go-tos. Right. Well, I mean, this is over and above obviously optimizing the site for local. Understanding, especially where you are going to, and this thing is understanding what their users are going to be searching for, and putting that business into their purchasing funnel, the user's purchasing research. And it could be as simple as creating a Google spreadsheet that every time they get a phone call, they write down what that customer wanted and what the answer is. And the more you can build up, and you can even from an FAQ page, you can obviously you want to build those out into different queries, but you can take an FAQ page which you can get done in a week. You can get that on site, and you can increase business, or at least inquiries, overnight for that business by tapping into the right and understanding what their customer is looking for.
Okay, and I guess any other maybe reframe the kind of question. What do you think are the most underutilized or misunderstood parts of either kind of GMB or other areas that you think people just don't put enough focus on that you like to focus on with your clients?
The one thing that sort of really confuses me is how people neglect structured data markup. I use HasMap, where I always link with the CID direct to the GMB listing. And I provide them with the location on site. I don't want them to have to go and Google me, or have to Google the industry, or whatever the case may is, to find out where the business is, because they want to come and pick up their dry cleaning, or have drop off whatever to be cleaned, or their teeth whitened, or whatever the case may be. Once you've spent all that time on site, provide everything to them there. Yes, they can still click through to maps to find out where you are, but they're not leaving. You're not sending them off to go and do a search for your thing. And I frankly find it astonishing how so many local search companies just haven't got the basic concept of, this is local. These are 2 things that need to work together: the site and your GMB, and we need to tie them together. And how they just don't manage to do that.
What are the things that you're looking? What do you think are the absolute must sort of hygiene level things that they should do to tie those 2 things together? What are the tactics and exercises?
So the basic thing, if it's a single business site, and you're chucking structured data in for the business, that's including your address, but you don't have your address on site. Now, structured data is meant to mark up content on site. It's like it's almost as if they've thought, well, people are saying we should do this, so they chuck in the structured data, but they're not actually understanding what is structured data. You're meant to mark up stuff on site, and if you're not marking up stuff on site, well, why are you putting that structured data in? How do you possibly think that one's going to help you without the other? So it's really just stepping back and looking at it, and getting everything in place.
Okay, great, thanks, Tim. Let's question down. let's go to Sam. Actually, you might have touched on this already, but might get a definitive answer from you. How much customization do you do in the services that you provide? Would you say they're really standard or highly customized?
It's customized because, as I said, I tend to see what the perceived issue is, and I try and deal with that first. If that leads to, okay, look, guys, you're not even in the yellow pages, then of course some citations, that's going to be a standardized thing, which will be part of the whole thing. But I tend to work on, I don't tend to look at it as in terms of I must do this before I can do this, before I can do this. It tends to be, what is the issue? Let's fix that, and let's see if we can help you in some quick wins with your perceived issue, and then look at the broader picture, and we can then, look at a longer term sort of strategy.
And do you find that's quite productive in terms of securing longer term or ongoing work? Is that
yeah, definitely. I mean, it might not be there straight away. So if somebody comes to me and you go, right, okay, look, we're looking at 4 hours of work here, and you complete that sort of 4 hours of work, off they toddle. Once that, that they start seeing the sort of benefit of that, because you took the time to say, what is it that you're seeing? When they start seeing, or you've explained to them, look, we can't really sort of do that, but we can do this because this is, I think, what you're trying to achieve there. And then when they go away, and obviously it doesn't happen overnight all the time, but they might have gone away. In 2 months' time, they might start having more phone calls to do with a particular service that they've been doing, because you've focused it more, unique on local, or you've optimized it better for local. Then they start looking at the bigger things. So they start going, oh, I'm getting more calls. Well, what about this other service? How am I going to do this? And that's when they approach you again. And then it's like, okay, so we fixed that. Now you really want to focus on everything. Right. Well, this is obviously going to take a lot longer. And, we can look at an entire strategy to work through all your products, services, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when you did a quick, a quick fix, when they start seeing, the results of that, because you've taken the time to understand it, it's not just like, oh yeah, okay, what I'll do is I'll build some citations and, get some package or Fiverr or whatever the case may be. You've provided them with, you've actually helped them with what they wanted doing. And then normally, not always, but normally they'll come back to you in a couple months' time and go, oh, that's working lovely now. I've seen this and I've thought about this. And then it's like, okay, right, now we want to take it further. Let's come up with a plan.
Okay, good. Thanks, Steve. I can see that. We really see how that kind of cascades on from one engagement into a longer, definitely. Bigger, more profitable engagement. Question, this is really specific to you, actually. So your daily engagement in the GMB help community, as a Google product expert, how does that help you with your work with clients? And would you recommend for other business consultants to try and get onto the Google product expert program? And how is that? How do you do that?
Okay, so how do you do that? You just pick the products that you like, whether it be, if you're more into technical SEO, there's Webmaster Central, there's, obviously find the product. And you've literally, if you were going to do it just for yourself and building your brand, I think it's going to be a long slog, because you need to spend a bit of time there. And then eventually, if you're spending time there, of course, then other product experts notice, then there's internal discussions, and then there's, moving you up and mentoring, et cetera, et cetera. Is it good if you like helping people? Yes. Is it time consuming? Yeah. And they've actually just changed it now onto I don't even know what this new platform is, but it counts all your interactions and things like this. It's a bit weird. A lot of PEs aren't really too keen on it, but basically it's saying, right, if you don't reach this level of interaction every month, we might be giving you a bit of a chat. So yeah, a lot of PEs are going a bit, not so sure on that you're monitoring my performance. But the biggest thing that you can take away from it, and even if you don't want to go down the PE route, actually spend some time there, because you will come across things and issues that you would never normally come across. Even I would say within a busy agency, some really unique, interesting, quite weird situations. And then if you've got a bit of I want to solve this thing, you can solve it. And if it starts appearing more and more, there all of a sudden you've got yourself a bit of a case study going on. One, if you keep answering it because you've figured out, there's actually a bit of a workaround to this, or whatever the case may be, and you start answering it, people will see that. People may even give you a call. But I think the biggest takeaway there is, you will see things there. If you spend some time, you will see problems and issues which you wouldn't normally encounter in a normal agency situation, just by the sheer, different countries, issues, borders, locations. Why is this not working? If you like solving problems, there's certainly a lot to go around.
Do you find it's a good source of special kind of content for you in terms of identifying new issues that you might?
Yeah, definitely. You'll see trends. You'll see trends coming up, and you can also. I mean, one of the things with Ps, you can quickly see where something's certainly broken and which is hindering, and you can actually escalate and flag that kind of stuff. But you can also see potential needs that GMB. That's just the way it is. That's intended. But there's actually, it's causing a problem for people, and this is how you can work around that. And yeah, it's great content, because people always want to, will always be coming up with this issue, and you've helped them solve it.
Interesting. Okay, thanks, Tim. Next question. It's one comes from Fleming. It says, when it comes to reporting for your clients, do you use the same report structure for all clients? Or do you tailor it, and how do you establish what metrics you should focus on for each client?
So it's definitely going to differ from client to client. Your quick turnarounds, you're not really going to have sort of metrics. It tends to be on what their issue was, and if their issue was we're just not appearing on the map, and they now are appearing, well, that's your metric. But my longer term clients, you're obviously looking at, and some of them will slightly differ. But hotels, of course, is direct bookings. We don't want OTA bookings. OTA bookings cost you commission. So we want direct bookings. We want direct bookings coming from organic. We don't want, and that's where we spend the most of our time. Then marketing team, referrals, great, or direct, that's great. We tend to look at organic and bookings coming from organic content coming from that, and then how GMB is tying into that, and how can we get the direct bookings seasonal, of course, seasonal. So yeah, but each one's going to slightly differ in terms of what their needs are and what their business model is. So it will slightly differ.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tim. Next question. This comes from Andy. Any tips on working with the client's web person or web team when you want to make changes or updates in terms of, I guess, building rapport or getting stuff done, pushed through fast?
Yeah, like any tips? No, I think if you develop, that relationship pretty quickly on, devs tend to be a little bit precious. So I think approach as if you're not going to be saying you're crap, you're this, you're that, blah blah blah. You know, in the reporting or your initial audits and things like that. Give them a little bit of. I think what's worked for me over the years is just give them a little bit of credit in the audits, because they're going to have to be implementing some of these, and you know, especially your wording. Is, you know, be careful with that, because what I found out to my detriment years ago was my audits were literally handed over to the developer, where I've proceeded to pretty much, you know, say, oh, this was basic errors in this. And of course, you've already suddenly built a wall there. And anytime you just, even a tiny little thing could end up taking a week just to get fixed. So I've learned now just to be a little bit more cautious with, and I wouldn't say pat the ego or stroke the ego, but say, look, this mistake, yeah, it was easy enough to have made, and blah, blah. You know, I think it's all in terms of how you approach and word. But don't get me wrong, I still blow up with internal teams. It's just how you've built the relationship with the actual owner or CEO or director or whatever the case may be, who your contact is, where you can say, look, it's just not really working out. This mistake is happening time and time again. And it's starting to become a problem now rather than working. So you do have to have those conversations, but I would say try and start off as gentle as possible.
Good sage advice. Quick question from Mark. He says, if a business is a service company with no physical address in their GMB, what benefit is there in building citations, e.g. around that?
So if you're a service company, Mark, you still have an address somewhere. You still operate from somewhere. Even if it's your home address, that is still where your business is registered. Now, apart from citations, just think about confidence, that a person who comes to your site, what happens if they have an issue? What happens? How do they contact you? If you're not prepared to put your address on site, even if it's just in your contact page, or things like this, you can build citations and they can go to that address. A lot of more refined top tier citation sites allow you to select that this is a home address, which will hide it like GMB. But just from the fact that just because you think no address is there, I think you should have that on your site. It's about trust. It's about, if a business is going to have a problem, look, if it's a 10 quid window cleaner, yeah, right, it's not going to be an issue. But if you're a $2,000, I don't know, car valeting, whatever, there needs to be that level of transparency. And just putting that address, even if you do work from home, is going to provide that level of transparency.
And I also think, because obviously we did a lot of citation work. Actually, I might ask Jamie to share our list of sites that you can hide your address on. Obviously, you still need to input your address into Google. Google stores that. And so building citations where your NAP is visible on other sites does actually kind of reinforce Google's understanding about your business.
Definitely.
So definitely a plus side still to kind of building citations there, even though the address isn't always visible, particularly within kind of sort of GMB. So maybe we'll sort of share that later. We've overrun by a bit. We'll ask a couple more questions. There's actually just a hotel rated questions for you here, Tim. So sorry for everyone. I basically lied and let you down. We're not going to answer every question because there have been a lot, and Tim's given us a good slug of his time today. Question for you, Tim. This comes from Luke. It says, do reviews for hotels in GMB have the same impact as reviews for other industries, given the different nature of the hotel pack to most other business type packs?
They are more impacted in terms of the search query. So hotel reviews, when a person leaves a review, they can actually, and in fact, that's started to happen in some industries now. I think it was I started swinging this week. I'm sorry. But basically, because your review, you don't actually go straight to the review. You actually ask now to review individual things within that. What was your nature of your visit, family, or friends, or vacation or business? Then it's review the service, review the room, review amenities. So they're really splitting that down in that sense. So it's not necessarily going to just be a ranking factor because you've got, or at least a slightly better ranking factor because you've got more reviews. It's more also search queryable, and they're going to be filtering. And I think they're going to get a lot more into that because I don't know if you've noticed with, and this could be a thing to come with other businesses also, but they pull reviews now from TripAdvisor and flipping all the other OTAs, and it's a nightmare. But definitely the actual ones left on GMB, they can be filtered in search, and they are actually within the actual hotel finder, where you can select by service, by amenity, by pool. Yeah. So yeah, they definitely do. They definitely do. But of course,
they probably have more impact then, don't they? They're using more ways, so therefore they have more.
They do use them in more ways. Whether you've got more reviews is, I wouldn't say like 5 reviews over 10 reviews is going to actually put one above the other, but it's definitely in the search query because people search a lot differently in when you're looking for a hotel, whether it be a pool or restaurant or beach or things like that. The queries are different.
Okay, let's go to some Steve. What do you know about, and should we be concerned about Google testing the $50 a month upgraded GMB?
Yeah. Look, the thing that's gonna happen there is people are going to be using it. There's no two ways about it. And unfortunately, if your vertical that you're in starts using it, always offered to them because it's not available to every industry. If they
just want to clarify what people get for that $50.
You're going to get a lot of pain and heartache from Google. That's what you're going to get. You don't actually get anything, really. So it's going to be the same way as when you apply for the Google guarantee. Google essentially is guaranteeing the service for up to $2,000, product or service. So they definitely want to know that you exist. So there are advanced checks on the business itself. And they check basically a criminal record check on every single staff member. So it's pretty intrusive. But of course, Google's going to be guaranteeing your service up to $2,000. The one thing you will get, not entirely 100% sure yet, but one thing you will get, it's kind of mixed into the LSA sort of dashboard. So any calls that are coming through, you will be they will be recorded, and you'll be able to use them as such. Call tracking much better, so you've got a better dashboard in that sense. But in terms of benefit, the benefit's going to be, it's nice and shiny. And if other people start using it in your vertical service when that's offered in that service, unfortunately, you're going to have to. If you're the only one that's not Google guaranteed out of in a local pack, and just remember, we are assuming it's just going to look like the normal results at the minute. Look at LSA, that all of a sudden has its own vertical now at the very top. Are we just going to assume that GMB is just going to sit there with a little Google guaranteed in the local pack? Are they going to go like with a 7-pack with hotels? I mean, it's quite different, Are they going to create their own little local finder where you can then switch down to say, search via Google guaranteed only? We don't know where this is going to go. but believe you me, they're going to milk it. And
Yeah.
if it's appearing and other of your competitors in your area are using it, unfortunately, I think you will have to bite the bullet and you will have to go through the whole advanced verification process.
And why? Because you think it's going to be quite a distinguishing feature? You mean you think it's going to be a big selection criteria for users?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, you know, there were those studies. I think who did those heat map studies on actual review stars and how they impacted a person's, you know, in the local pack on the 5s and a 4-star.
That was us.
Yeah.
We've done one study like that.
Yeah. So, you know, and I think you take that with a Google guarantee, I do think it's going to be a
bit of a game changer.
At least for the first couple of years. That's really, you know, the thing is, anything new on a page, people are like, oh, they notice it.
Yeah.
15 years from now, when everybody's got a Google guaranteed badge, do you know what I mean? When everybody's got 5 stars, it's like, it's nothing new. Yeah. Everybody's used to seeing it.
Still kind of almost a kind of just a kind of table stakes factor to even kind of compete, isn't it? This is what kind of Google's hoping for. They hope if they can extract $50, an additional $50 from every SMB who wants to, you know, play in local SEO, then this is probably a fairly cast iron way for them to do that.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
Is it currently just US?
Just US. I don't think it'll be coming to the UK anytime soon. They tried to onboard LSA in the UK, but Brits being Brits basically told them, hang on, you want me to pay you for a phone call? And I think they also tried to onboard in the wrong areas. They tried Manchester and Liverpool. So they gave up with the UK. I don't think we'll be getting Google guaranteed here. And just remember, Google guaranteed, you still need to do the whole verification. I don't know who they were using to try and onboard in the UK for all of this at large scale. They never confirmed it. I'm going to say they probably used G4S. You know, this is a full-on business. You know, it's quite intrusive. It's your entire business gets checked and all your staff.
Yeah, it is very intrusive. Right, we're going to leave it there. Tim, thank you.
All right.
We've run over in typical fashion. So thank you very much for sharing so much, talking through your experiences, giving us the insights as a kind of Google product expert.